Hey Cody, Steve Dangle here. This is from your friend Tate, and he gave me very specific instructions, so I'm going to read them out as follows. Tell Cody that paying for cameo of you, you see, he made a mistake. He made a mistake. Tell Cody that paying for a cameo of you and playing it on our podcast, The O Show, an OHL podcast, is totally the right move. Cody, getting a cameo of me and playing it on the podcast, your podcast, The O Show, is totally the right move. Can I ask a question beforehand? The O Show, Cody? The O Show. Tate did not pay for a roast, but I am tempted. What's the podcast about? Okay, a stranger stumbles across your podcast. What do you think they're going to think it's about? What do you think they're going to think it's about, Cody? I'm just saying, I am simply saying, with my eyes. I'm just saying it with the head tilt. Listen, you can call your podcast whatever you want. I'm just some chode who named the podcast after myself. So maybe I'm not the best one to give you advice. But the O Show, my dear. I'm not sure about that. What do you guys talk about? You guys talk about like how the Oshawa Generals are the best team, or do you talk about how the London Knights sniff their own farts, or what do you talk about? I'd love to know. Do you talk about Nick Robertson and how he definitely does not play defense? Like as a position, he's defensively responsible. He kills penalties. That's the OHL's rating MVP. Gosh darn it! Maybe he can be a future guest on the O Show. We'll work on it, Cody. We'll work on it.
What's up, everyone? It's Tate Harris from the O Show, the show that you're listening to. I don't know why I started like that. You can follow me on Twitter at TateHarris9. And with me, as always, is Cody Wall, C Wizzy, at Cody Wall 62 on Twitter. Cody, unfortunately, Steve Dangle is not a fan of the O Show name that he thinks you came up with.
Yeah, that's the thing that's like, I'm like, I probably have the least amount to say in the name because I kind of just showed up and they're like, I think we're going with the O Show. And I'm like, Jonathan was still with us at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with that. But like, I didn't really even, I made the joke. I'm pretty sure the day of, I'm like, the O Show, eh?
Well, I also remember Jonathan told me the name, and I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of corny. I don't know, the O Show, right? Like I know people call it the O. It just didn't sit right with me. And then I was trying to think of OHL podcast name, and I couldn't come up with something better.
Yeah.
But looking back, maybe we should have just did the OHL podcast.
I mean, it probably would have been easier to find us, or people would have knew exactly what we were about.
Yeah, I mean, it's in there and everything. But I paid for a cameo from Steve Dangle. I told Cody we shoulda. He said that's not the right move. So I figured it would be funny to have Steve Dangle tell Cody it was the right move. But then he kind of crapped on the podcast. So that's okay though. We'll take it.
Yeah, it's I mean, it was weird, definitely, just like because he said my name so many times. I'm like, damn, it's weird when someone that you look up to, and then it's like, oh, they're talking directly to you, even though they're not knowing who they're talking to.
Yeah, that is weird. And I've told Cody the story of when I met Steve Dangle, and hopefully, if Steve listens to the first little bit of the podcast, because we're talking about him, that would be cool. So maybe he'll remember it. He probably won't, but it's such a weird story. It was the Hockey Night in Cinema. Do you remember when they did that? That was pretty cool when they were doing that. So I'm going to tell the story to you guys. Basically, I went with my buddy, Alex Kubinick. Wow, a lot of shout outs recently for Alex Kubinick. We went to the Hockey Night in Cinema. It was at Western University campus. We got there a little late. Everyone, man, it was a huge lineup. Everyone kind of had seats. There was a few seats right near the front there on the far right if you're looking at the screen, the far right of the screen at the very front. So Alex and I had to sit there. Little did we know that Steve, Adam, and Jesse were right behind us. But that's not where I met Steve. While everyone was sitting down, it was getting really close. They closed all the doors. Like, you could tell they were about to come out soon. I'm like, I gotta pee. Like, there's no more holding this. Like, I gotta pee. I go to the washroom and I bump into Steve, and Steve awkwardly was like, "Oh, hey," in his Steve way, and I, as Jonathan put it in my awkward Tate way, was like, "Hi," and then just went ahead and peed after he peed. Could have been the same urinal. I don't know.
Could have been you could have peed where he once.
I could have peed where he once peed. So yeah, that was a weird story. And I told Cody if we ever do talk to Steve in person and not pay $14 for it, I am going to tell him that story. So that will be fun. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about ring threads. I don't know, Cody, big fan.
Big fan. Good apparel.
Good apparel. So they do graphic tees with different hockey slogans and stuff on it. Check out their website, ringthreads.com or .ca. Both work. Take a look at their apparel. There's going to be some good news about them and us, and maybe next week. All right, that's all I'm going to say. I think people are kind of picking up what we're laying down, seeing the friendship build.
The friendship, the shout outs on Instagram.
You know, a bit of a sponsorship possibly in the works. I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, but go check out Ring Threads. Cody, you will definitely do the ad reads. Anyways, let's talk a little OHL news. Super Bear Week. We don't have an interview, just because everything's about to ramp up here. You can kind of feel it. I know we took the break a while back, and then we had Chad on, and we both decided it would be best to take a break, like, because there's extra prep when you have a guest.
A lot of times we're filming 2 different days. Yeah,
2 different days. So you're putting in more time there. So we just decided no guests this week. It's just going to be us. And of course we picked that on the slowest week. So import draft. What are your initial thoughts? I always find it weird, especially this year, because normally it happens after the NHL draft. And you can kind of see, well, the NHL teams kind of have when they have the rights of a player, they can kind of help send them to the OHL or WHL or the Q. This time there was none of that, so you're really guessing, and I think you've seen a lot of teams pick a lot more younger players, like 16, 17-year-olds.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to touch on. Like you said, it seemed like they went with the younger route, probably thinking like, if for some reason these guys don't come over right away because they're so young, they do retain the rights, do they not?
Sorry, what? I was drinking water.
I was saying with the younger thing, if they don't come over right away, they get drafted, they would retain their rights, correct?
Yeah, you still retain the rights and you can release them the next year. Yeah, like it's a bit of a guess.
The other thing that kind of stood out this draft is the amount of teams that just said like, hey, we're not drafting anyone. Like, I was reading in an article, this is the first time since 2000 that 10 teams decided, like, in the first round, they're just like, yeah, we're not taking anyone.
And 3 of those teams were from the OHL that didn't take anyone: the Guelph Storm, the Kingston Frontenacs, and the Sioux Greyhounds. Do you think this is COVID related? I know those players those teams do have rights to players, so that's why they didn't pick. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, this is tough. This is the problem with junior hockey. Sometimes there's not enough information out there. Like, there should have been COVID rules. Yeah. Everyone should have been able to pick 2, because you don't know who's going to feel comfortable coming over. and who's not. Like someone that was on your team last year, like Kingston, you take a look at Chromiak. What if he just says, I don't feel safe,
Yeah.
and you didn't make another pick?
Yeah.
So maybe there should have been COVID rules. I heard there was that, even though some teams had the rights to some players, they were still able to pick again. I don't know. Like I wish that information was more available.
Yeah. Public.
More public.
Yeah, it is weird. And like you said, the biggest thing I'm sure teams are worried about is at least factoring in COVID is, are players actually going to come over? And like, I want to see after this is all said and done, like, I'm sure you could find it online, just like see on average how many players of the draft tend to come over, and then this year's numbers, just to see the difference between like, hey, was there a huge drop off this year of players that came over, or are we blowing it out of proportion? Not to say like COVID isn't a major thing, but like, are players really thinking that much? And like, how much of the families of these players have to play into stuff like this? Like with the draft and how we all said, like, they went younger this year, a lot of teams, like, I'm sure that's going to have a bigger impact on like families, because like, do you want to send a 16-year-old kid overseas in this time of the world?
Well, maybe the idea going younger is you may not get them this year, but you may get them next year.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the idea behind it. I really don't know, because you take a look at that age, like, I mean, you're getting guys that already draft. If you got guys that were already drafted or going to be drafted, they can play pro in Europe. That opportunity is certainly there. They might not get a lot of ice, but they'll have an opportunity to play, where some of these 17-year-olds or 18, unless you're, I guess, star or really skilled, you may not have that same opportunity to get really any ice and playing in the junior leagues over there. So I don't know. Like, it would have been tough to be a GM making these picks and making these decisions right now during this time, because even no matter how much you scout, I think the NHL draft really did play a big part into who you picked. Like, if you're looking on your list and it's I don't know what organization likes to send their guys to the O, or you know what I mean? Like, if you see, okay, this player was drafted by Carolina, they like to send guys back to play in North America, or the Maple Leafs, you might go, all right, we'll pick that player because we know there's a greater chance of them coming over. Like, there's a lot of things that go into the import draft, I think, and especially like scouting on junior hockey teams in Europe. Like, how bad it is for some NHL teams with not a lot of money, let alone junior hockey teams. So some interesting things. OHL team did have the first overall pick, picking Matvei Petrov. Do you think I said that one right? What do you think?
Of all your attempts at names, I feel like that was a strong one.
I hope so. Cody, what do you think this player? I know you read a little bit about him.
He's a guy where I'm like, okay, maybe he comes over. I know one person I read was comparing him to Evgeny Svechnikov, and I'm like, that's a name to live up to.
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
tough.
But like, he is 17. He apparently he put up about a half a point a game this season in the MHL, I believe it was. So what's that? That's the tier 2 league, or the junior league over there, the equivalent to the OHL, something along those lines.
Yeah, I believe. Because I think the VHL is their tier 2 league, and the MHL is their junior league.
Yeah, that's what I believe. I don't know. When I was looking at the roster with him, like, it seems like all the guys that were ahead of him for the most part are like all just like older dudes. So I think I read like a few years back that like older players, no matter how skilled, like the older players they're just going to be favored in overseas for the most part, at least at the younger ages, even even if the guy's more skilled. So I don't know. Like he's 6'1", so he's a good size. Like I said, half a point a game. They said he has a good shot, and he should be able to step into the OHL and provide instant offense. I don't know. It's just when I read him, they said, okay, so he was the last pick to go, or the last Russian to go first overall since Svechnikov, and they said there are similarities within their game. So I don't know if he can even become, I don't know, a third, not a half of that. That's a pretty good, decent player.
Yeah, and obviously North Bay is a rebuilding team with the Ty Nelson going there this year, first overall. So, like picking young, probably the right decision when you're building up from where they're building up. But yeah, it's always been tough for me to tell. Like you talk about KHL numbers, like how many goals was Alex Ovechkin scoring in the KHL?
I think it was like 20 or something, or it might not have even been that.
And like people knew he was going to come over and be, a 50 goal scorer. So the numbers over there, it's just, it's a mess for me looking at numbers only. And that's basically what you and I are looking at because we don't know these players enough.
Yeah. So Ovechkin's draft season, he put up 13 goals in 53 games. The KHL, what was it at the time? Wasn't the KHL? It was the
Super League or
something along those lines. And then because everyone knows the lockout happened the year he was like at what would have been his rookie season, and he in that season overseas he put up 13 goals again, but this time instead of 53 games he did it in 37. So like 13 goals in 37 games jumps to the NHL, 81 games, 52 goals, 106 points.
Oh, like it's crazy, and it's just strange. It really is strange the way the numbers work over there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for us just basing it off numbers to really understand some of these players. But just looking at elite prospect profiles, I think the one that interests us the most was the pick at 7 for Sarnia was Alex Gessie or Gessie. I don't know, dude.
You were going so strong with the names.
I don't know.
Well, I did my spiel about one player. You go ahead and give your spiel.
Yeah, well, right away you see a 16-year-old kid who's going to be 17, who's 6'2".
Yeah,
176. Yeah, it looks like he played in Finland. U18, he put up over a point per game, and then U20 in Slovakia, 17 points in 27 games. So, like decent numbers for a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah, that's the thing about overseas players is just like until we see them play some North American hockey, like we're basically reading numbers and looking at their bio and maybe a few little clips on YouTube and stuff like that, but we know very little about these players.
Yeah, and the problem with the clips on YouTube is like whoever's posting them posts the best clips. Like you're not seeing a full shift, you're seeing the dangles.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like every player, every so often has like sick hands or they'll pull off this great move. Like I think Jay Rosehill on the Leafs once had a highlight reel goal, and Jay McClement scored an insane shorthanded goal. Like if you're a semi-decent hockey player nowadays, you have hands.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it's a guaranteed, and especially Euro players, which I don't know if it's bad to think that, but I don't know. You think of almost every Euro player that comes over, they probably have sick hands. One player that a lot of people were excited about, and Niagara, Joey Burke was definitely excited about was here we go.
You skipped him.
What?
When you jumped from the right down to Alex, and I'm like, are you just not gonna attempt that name?
No, I was gonna talk about it. It's just I just wanted to talk about the Sarnia pick and then the Niagara pick. All right.
Okay.
Daniel Gushchin. Gustin.
Something on sick player.
Sick player. He's 18, but USHL put up 47 points in 42 games. Again, we're looking off point totals, but as a comparable, let's take a look at how much Igor Afanasiev put up at the same age last year. 62 points in 58 games.
So similar total.
So
point
similar point per game total.
I mean,
so
one's way bigger in size comparison, but this guy is also from what I've read, he's the one I've done the most reading about, and from what I've read, like they said, talent wise, he's up there with some of the best in the draft. It's just to compete, and apparently his defensive game is brutal. Like they said, he stands still on shifts and just waits for the puck to come to him.
Yeah. Like I don't know. Like it's tough. Like
well,
when they're young, and I know he's 18 now, and we always hear the same thing: the defensive game. Like basically, that's what separates the top 10 players.
Yeah. Are you decent in your own end at 18?
Yeah. That's basically what we're seeing. So, I mean, from the way you describe it, maybe it's a little too bad.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between being bad at defense and just not caring. And from what I've read, it sounds like he just doesn't care on the defensive end.
That's fair. That's a fair thing to say. But I'm excited about him. I think Niagara is obviously getting a point producer, and you lose a player like Tomasino, like don't lose him, you trade him, and you're going to get a player like this back for you guys. He's probably going to tear it up. He's going to do well. He's going to look good, and I expect this is one of the few players I expect to commit no issues.
Yeah, because everything I've read about him says that he's not playing with the Lumberjacks next season. That he's gonna. I've read that there's the possibility that he goes overseas, but it's sounding like Theo was the likely choice. And credit to him, at least at the OHL level, like a player like him will do well no matter what. It's when I'm talking about his negatives, I'm talking more about long-term NHL potential because of the defensive end. But he'll tear it up at the O.
Yeah, I also think so. I think he's gonna have no problem tearing it up. He's gonna have probably Cam Butler on his line as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to look up something here on Niagara. Just trying to see what picks they made in the actual draft again.
Who they actually drafted, or just in general?
Oh, in the actual draft. So Pano Femus was the junior Canadian player who put up points.
We talked about him.
Yeah. Who did they get in the? They have a second round. Yeah, Alec Leonard. I don't think I liked that one because I don't remember talking that I liked Niagara's draft.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah. All right.
We don't know.
Anyways,
until they play.
Well, they picked two. So their first pick in the first round, second overall in the OHL draft, big point producer.
Yeah.
And then they're picking the import draft, same thing, big point producer. So it's kind of obvious the type of players that they're looking to add on that. They're looking for people that can put up some points.
And I would argue at the OHL level, that's the most important thing. Can you score? Yes or no?
I like that. Let's talk about someone who did score at the OHL level.
There we go. Good transition.
There we go. I was struggling during that whole import thing. Robbie Schremp, man. So he does the interview with Spittin Chiclets on the last podcast. And when they get players that kind of did a tour in Europe, played everywhere, usually the players are they were kind of always bust. You know what I mean? It's not none of them were touted as high as I think a Rob Schremp was.
Well, could you be a bust if you're not touted high? You would just you're a journeyman.
Yeah, you just were what you were.
Yeah, not the case with this guy.
Not the case with this guy, and I found it so fascinating. So basically, he had his sights on the OHL the whole time.
Yeah.
There was nothing but the OHL. His rookie season in the O, he put up 74 points in 65 games with Mississauga.
Yeah.
He then asked for, that's great. That's ridiculous. Then he asked for a trade. Then he makes his way over to the London Knights, where again he has another good season. What do you? He
stays
about the same. About the same. So maybe not what you wanted to see. But in that interview, he kind of talks about how he fell in the draft, how mad he was. This is what I loved about it, and he talks about it constantly during the interview, is how he's learned about why he didn't make it, which obviously it's too late now. Like, he talks about falling in the draft, and now he realizes he fell in the draft because the way he talked in his interviews, he was still conceited. And, instead of, he said he felt defensive all the time when people brought up him asking for a trade out of Mississauga. Like, was there a better way to explain it? Then he wins the Mem Cup 04-05, puts up 90 points again. Another good season. The season after that, though, he put up 145 points, 57 games.
57 goals as well.
57 goals as well. A goal every game. Like, this guy's looking like a stud, and he had the skills. He talks about how, Dale Hunter kept trying to explain to him, it doesn't always need to come out. And he said he was still stubborn about that through his whole career. And you take a look, like, he never had a problem putting up numbers, even when he had his short stint with the New York Islanders.
Yeah. Have we mentioned his name once?
Yeah, I said Rob Schremp.
Okay. I wasn't sure about that. I was listening to you, and I'm like, did we say his name?
Could you imagine?
I don't know if we said his name.
100%. I said his name. There's not a doubt in my mind.
Okay.
I said
because I referred to him as, this guy definitely didn't have a reason to have points, and then you kind of went on your little spiel about him. So I'm like, did the name come out and I missed it?
I thought I said it even before that.
Oh, you might have. Maybe. I don't know.
I thought I said Robbie Schremp.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Well, now you guys know who we're talking about. Our boy Rob. Mr. Hates to John Tavares. Okay, anyways. Yeah, it's just, it was an interesting perspective to see someone who's obviously grown or looks back to know what he did wrong. And it also made me think of kind of what we're seeing now, of the kind of do what you're told, and like, where's the line of, like, a player that's just stubborn, and doesn't listen to, a player who should stick up for himself and be himself. You know what I mean? Like, where's that line? Like, do you think Rob Schremp was an NHL player?
I don't know, because, like, Schremp played, 10 years ago is when he played in the NHL. From whatever, the thing I really remembered about him is, like, he was a shootout specialist. Like, he was money in the shootout. And that's a lot of it had to do with his raw skill and just his ability to beat players one-on-one. And I think if he played in today's NHL, like, if he was coming in this draft or something, like, he would be a guy who would be on everyone's radar and be circled, like, hey, this is a guy we have to draft. Like, this is the way the NHL is going. Although I don't know if he would, because the other knock on him was his skating, which I talk about all the time, is, like, it's at the point where I'm like, it's somewhat overrated. but like it's still important, and teams still look at it. So like,
Yeah, that's fair.
so like I don't. Part of me is like, yeah, this guy would kill it in today's NHL, but then at the same point, I'm like, would he? Because it's the issues that they talked about him was like worth ethic. His compete level. I can't speak. I
Did we
turned
just
into
switch bodies? Yeah.
I turned into no his compete level and his skating, which would be two major things that would be red flags in this year's draft. So like, I think he probably was an NHL player. I think he could have worked harder, and that stubbornness ultimately ruined his not ruined, but like shortened his career in the NHL, and he never became the player he probably could have been. But at the same point, I don't know. Like he's the way I would describe him is he's like a big what if. Like what if this went differently?
Yeah, and what if he was played in a role that he thought he could succeed at? Like what if a coach didn't allow for that stubbornness and say, "Okay, Rob, you think you're a top 6 player with these sick hands and you want to do all these moves? Go do it." You know, what if he had a coach that let that happen? What type of player would he have been? Would he have gotten the confidence? Like, because you talk about him being a perfect player in today's era, which he totally would be. You do look, he played 114 NHL games and was, half a point per game. Like that's not bad. Like every time you get called up, you're putting up points. And I know we have this discussion. It's not all about points, and we get that, but it's tough to think a guy that can produce like that. I guess, we talk about that third line and a guy that can be on your third line and put up, like power play time for you as well. And that's a new NHL thing.
Yeah,
I guess that's kind of would have been his perfect slot where he wasn't top 6. He played like top 6. And in today's NHL, you could sneak in and that third line as a winger and maybe play. Yeah, it'd be sheltered. So I guess you're right. The other thing I found interesting in that as well, Cody, there's a few things, was how much he talked about how hockey's for entertainment.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Like everything he was talking about, like it's all entertainment. And like, yeah it is. But it's weird that a player has that mindset.
Yeah, like he's talking about like thinking of it, as a business, as a way to make money. They talk specifically about the shootout. He's like, yeah, why do we have to do the full team? There's guys that don't want to be in the shootout. I do. I'm good at it. I'm going to pull out a sick move. Would you rather see, and he mentions, would you not want to see Patrick Kane go 10 times in the shootout?
Yeah, well, how great was it when TJ Oshie went over and over in the Olympics? It was TJ Oshie.
Yeah, and Jonathan Toews in the World Juniors, like
ice in his veins.
Like those were big moments, and people love the shootout, and you get like these, just especially Rob Schremp with the lacrosse goals and stuff. Could you imagine if someone allowed him to do that in the NHL?
Oh, it would be
ridiculous.
Well, the biggest thing is like, imagine being the coach on the bench and that's the move your guy. Like imagine Mitch Marner goes out there and Sheldon Keefe's behind the bench and watching this guy doing shit.
Yeah, that would be crazy. But yeah, it was very interesting to hear a player talk about like, why not? Let's do this for entertainment purposes. Also, when he was talking about the women's game, the smaller rinks, that kind of made sense too.
Yeah. Well, he talked about, even from his own, not even talking women's game, just like from his own point of view, like when he made the jump to the bigger ice, like it messed up his shot a little bit, because he's like, okay, if I pinpoint this, I know if I get on target, it has a chance of going in. And he's like, once they expanded the ice, it messed with my mind. It messed with his mind a little bit, and the shot wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Like I get his point of view where like you shrink it for the women and it really gives the chance for like the skill
come
to
out.
come up, and from that point, I really like it. Because normally you hear the opposite, where like players are like, if you give you a little more space, it gives you more creativity, you got more time with the puck. But like, I never really thought about it from like the shrinking point of view.
Well, the way I kind of thought about it was the WNBA, where the 3-point line is closer and the ball is smaller.
Yeah.
Like there was adjustments kind of made to fit women's basketball, where there's really no adjustments other than no hitting there, but it's the same game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting way of looking at it, and I wouldn't be opposed from them at least trying it and seeing what happens.
Yeah. I guess the only problem is like you would have to find rinks with smaller or arenas with smaller rinks.
And that would be an issue, because
That would be an issue, yeah.
You're not going to fund, at least they're not going to fund women's hockey at the start to make them custom arenas.
Yeah. So the other thing, last thing that I found interesting, it was a great interview. Go listen to it. Spittin Chiclets. So I know how some people feel about them or whatever, but they do get good interviews. That's why Cody and I listen to it. I think it's fair to say, Cody.
Yeah, at the beginning, that was the only reason I listened to the podcast. I found as time has gone on, I've just started listening to the entire podcast of theirs.
Yeah.
Probably for the first year of when I listened to the podcast, I would skip to the interview. Once the interview ended, I would I would be done with the podcast.
Yeah, me too. I listen to it a little more now, the full podcast, and I think it's because those guys have personally shown some growth, and I know other people may have things to say about it, but like I see it there, and I know they're still with Barstool and you can get into all that. Anyways, the cool thing though that Schremp mentioned was he's kind of, from my understanding, it's a website or an app, 44visionhockey.com, that features a mix of former NHLers, Olympians, which aims to break down video for hockey players. He's hoping his online coaching platform will benefit all players, not just the wealthy players. He discussed various scholarship programs available. So it's to help teams, it's basically you take how he broke it down was you take a 10-goal scorer, make him a 20-goal scorer, and maybe he gets a scholarship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the big thing about that, or that part of the interview that stood out, is I like how he did say, like, this isn't for just rich players. Like, this is for just making every player the best possible player, because he talked about how like his mom still works to this day. He grew up in a small town, and like that's the big, everyone knows the biggest issue with hockey, and it's very apparent that the biggest issue with hockey going for young players is the cost it is to play. Like, it's a very expensive sport, and not everyone comes from a family that is privileged enough to afford for their kids to go. Like, I know growing up, my one friend, he worked the entire summer so he could pay to play hockey by himself, because his parents couldn't afford it. So he worked an entire summer to afford how much it would cost to play the hockey that year. So like, there's family, and that just drains away the ability for talent. Like, think of how many NBA players you hear of that had nothing, but they still make it to the NBA because all you need is a basketball.
Yeah.
With hockey, you need all the equipment. If your stick breaks, that's another $300. Like, it's a very, and then that's not even talking how much it costs just to play the sport. So like, that's the thing that stood out. It's like, we want to help these players get scholarships, but we're targeting everyone, not just rich players.
Yeah, they're not making it. Like I had friends growing up who would pay for the ice treadmills, like ridiculous stuff that costs so much money, and it's tough for people to get an edge on those people. So when someone comes out with a program like this to help your game, where it's cost effective, it definitely is great. So great interview, interesting guy. He's been around, and to see the growth is impressive.
It's nice to hear a player come out and say like, hey, I know my career could have been better, but I was stubborn and I've grown up.
Yeah, and now he's trying to make a difference now. So again, it was a great thing and an enjoyable interview. So go listen to that. Let's play the NHL sounder.
Good afternoon.
Pigeon.
I guess that's what I'm saying, Brooksy.
I can't really hear what Jeremy says because I got my 2 Stanley Cup rings plugged in my ear.
Oh, now the booing stops.
A lot was announced today before this podcast on what is the date today? July 6th. A CBA was announced. We have I guess no labor issues until 2026 in the NHL, which is impressive. NHL players are going back to the Olympics. Hub cities were announced: Edmonton and Toronto. Toronto will host the Eastern Conference. Edmonton will host the Western Conference, with the Stanley Cup Finals most likely taking place in Edmonton. They're probably going to see if the numbers change or anything like that.
I think the conference finals are also slated to take place there.
Oh, yeah? Okay. So that makes sense. Yeah. Toronto appears to be a last second replacement for Las Vegas, who have been the favorite. Like, some people guaranteed, because the whole time you always heard Vegas and. Obviously, Vegas had all the hotels, the tunnels, the streets, multiple arenas. But the spike with COVID-19 in Nevada, it scared people in all the southern states. It really is kind of crazy. So Toronto resubmitted a bid. Pierre LeBrun tweeted, Toronto's resubmitted bid was interesting. MLSE proposing a campus-like bubble over 40 acres on CNE grounds with player access to Hotel X, BMO Field, Raptors practice facility, Coca-Cola Coliseum, plus room to put up other amenities. The league also wanted to wait out the Canadian government, whose initial policy required people, including players, to isolate themselves for 14 days. So this is all good news, it seems like. The amount of tests they're going to be, everyone's going to be tested, and it's going to be a legit bubble. Like, if you're working for the restaurants that are in this bubble, you're staying there, and you're getting tested every day too. Like, every single person in this bubble, how much was it? I think it was like 1,700 tests a day. Does that seem like ridiculous? Or
It's a huge number, and the one thing that I saw, because obviously this was all over Twitter, and I think it was the NHLPA or the NHL Public Relations Twitter account. Someone tweeted out like a list of some news about this situation, and the top comment on that post was actually from a doctor who was. It kind of hit me because no one wants hockey back more than me, but the doctor was basically pleading. He added the NHL, and he's like, please don't let this happen. Hockey can wait a year. We understand how big of an impact it has on lives, but the way he said it is like the hospital that he currently works at, he's like, not all our doctors can be tested all the time, and we don't have the thing. And then he says those testing kits and everything involved should be available for the doctors, not for players daily.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but where does that doctor live? Because here in Canada, you and I can go get a test right now. Anyone can go get tests.
Yep.
There's no problems.
Yep.
So in Florida and stuff like that, yeah, is there issues? Yeah. But those hospitals who are probably making tons of money can go and buy tests. That's what it comes down to, is money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a tough situation.
Like, I get both sides.
I get both sides too, yeah.
Like, obviously you want to put people's lives before a sport, but at the same point, like you said, if it's not in an area that's affecting, like, the kits are available in Canada because our numbers are so low.
Yeah, exactly.
That I get both sides. I don't know. I just always, for some reason, I always seem to find myself leaning towards safety, and I get that, like, this is the best chance. Like, the NHL has done everything in their possibility to make this the best it could be, and it seems like this is the track to doing it. But in the back of my mind, there's always going to be part of me that's, when I'm seeing doctors and stuff online, I'm going to be like, yeah, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah, I can understand that as well, but it's, to me, yeah. I maybe I'm biased the other way, where I constantly lean to let's play, because they've done everything in their power to make this safe.
Yeah.
Like patios are open up in Kingsville and Leamington now, and you see people out in the streets. People are at parties. Like, this is going to be the safest spot. And we even, like, people saying, oh, they're going to be away from the families. Cody, I brought up to you, like, how many European players are away from their families for a whole year?
Yeah.
Or even you can even bring that to young OHL players who come over with these billets to a different country and don't see their families. You know, people make sacrifices, and they are going to allow families once they get into the conference finals, I believe. So at most they'll be away for 5 weeks. I think that's what they said, which is still a long time. But when you think about how often these guys are normally gone, especially during a playoff run, it probably would be about 5 weeks anyways.
Yeah, I guess the counter argument,
just all together.
Yeah, I guess the counter argument for that, like, saying players, and I'm with you, like, players do up and leave their families for an entire season and go home in the summer. I guess the counter argument would be, like, there's a difference between, like, being separated from your family for a long time and being separated from your family when something like this is happening in the world. Because, like, I've seen multiple threads on Twitter probably in the past, not recently, but maybe in the past month, where it's been like, hey, I'm separated from my mom. She lives here. I'm here. She's currently in the hospital. And I kept up with this one girl's thread where one day she just posted, she's gone. They're letting us FaceTime her from the hospital.
Yeah.
And they're keeping her body on FaceTime for an hour. But after that, that's it. And she's like, she died alone. Her family wasn't there. And I guess, I'm not saying that's ever going to happen. Like you said in the past podcast, it's like NHL players, they're testing and coaching the best facilities are going to be available for them. But it still probably is in the back of their mind. No one wants to be separated from their loved ones in times like this.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. And they do have the option to opt out.
Yep.
I think tomorrow's the deadline. So when this podcast comes out, you guys will know who opted out. What will be interesting to see if any players get any flack for opting out. If you see a player like Max Domi still playing and Carey Price opts out, are people gonna be mad at Carey Price?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I think all it takes, the stars are the ones that are gonna get the most flack if they do opt out, because, like, they're the guys who drive their team. Like, if you lose, say you're a team, like, I'm trying to think of a team that relies on, like, McDavid opts out.
Yeah.
Like, there's no chance. I know you got Draisaitl, but there's no chance.
Well, what I thought was weird is in the they said they do reserve the right to cancel this at any time, the tournament, right?
Yeah.
If it becomes a health and safety issue, or if the integrity of the play-ins and the playoffs get ruined. Well, if Connor McDavid opt out, is the integrity not ruined right away?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good answer.
No, you cut out. You went.
Oh, did you?
No, you cut out.
Oh, what did you hear? What was the last thing you heard?
I heard about Connor McDavid and then the integrity.
So I said the league has the rule. They could stop the tournament, whether it be safety or the integrity of the tournament is hurt.
Yeah.
In some way.
I heard that, yeah. I heard
Connor McDavid opt out, would the integrity of the tournament not be compromised?
Did you pause on purpose there?
No.
Oh, well, I heard it that time. Would it not be compromised? But legit, as soon as you begin the questions again, you pause for like a second.
Cody.
And I'm like, no, but I got it that time. I mean, yeah, 100%. If the best player in the world is like, yeah, I'm not playing, then it's not gonna mean the same. Like, because McDavid is the Oilers. Like, obviously, Draisaitl is a huge factor and might even probably win the Hart this year. But like, McDavid is that team's lifeblood, and if you take that McDavid away from that team, like, there legitimately is no chance. Like, I think some teams that are really deep could survive one of their stars opting out. Like Tampa, if someone opted out on Tampa, like Braden Point opted out, they would be fine because they got Cooch, they got Stamkos, they got Hedman. But teams like Edmonton that are like, they're so reliant on what McDavid provides, like I can get where the integrity of the game is being lost there, because like if you're matched up against them, like it's not a fair competition.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right, and like that'll be something we'll have to see what happens, because I don't know, like, to me that ruins the integrity of the tournament, but technically I don't know, does it? Like, I don't know, I guess it's a weird thing. July 13th though, camp starts, so that's in
7 days.
Oh yeah, 1 week away. July 26th, they travel to hub cities. August 1st is the start of the qualifying rounds. August 1st, you'll be watching hockey.
Hopefully watching hockey.
I don't know, man. Like, it feels like it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I was talking, like, everything that's come out makes me believe it's happening. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, can this happen? Like, are we less than a month away from hockey again?
Like, the weirdest thing for me, the strangest part, I think, is the training camps. Like, if you're in Florida, Arizona, Vegas, like, you got to do your camps somewhere north, right?
Yeah.
Like, would they be allowed to come to the hub city earlier? Because unless you're in a bubble and in that kind of area, you're going to see positive tests.
Yeah, the biggest thing I read about it, and they talked about, like, if a player does contract COVID, like, the process is you're isolated from the team instantly, and then your 14 days of isolation begin.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see, like, what would the number of players be before the NHL would be like, yeah, we can't continue. Like, how many players can contract it?
I would say 10 on a team.
10. You think that you're allowed 10 and then you're gone? Like, that seems like a lot. 10
okay,
players?
Are we talking in training camp or in the bubble?
In the bubble.
That's different. In the bubble, if more than 3,
If more, and then
it starts to be an issue.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Because the thing I'm worried about is, like, this all starts up and then we just have to cancel it midway through it. That's the thing I'm more worried.
If we get one game, I don't care.
Just give me something.
Just give me something. I just want one highlight pack. It's definitely going to be a strange thing. To me right now, if you look at all the plans of the major sports here in North America, the NHL looks like it's the highest possibility for success. And I didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah, because normally the NHL seems to be one of the worst at planning.
At planning stuff. Like MLB, they're still traveling.
Yeah.
The NBA, they're not in a bubble anymore because the Disney employees will be allowed to come and go in the highest affected state right now.
Yeah.
So that's weird. And MLS is down there too. So, like, just with the numbers, like, let me just quickly look, people. I keep saying like too much. That's something I got to work on. Edmonton COVID cases. How many do you think there was today?
Today?
Yeah.
What's the population of Edmonton?
Population of Edmonton.
I'll look them.
I'm gonna say like 1.1 million. That's what I'm gonna say. 980, almost a million people.
So almost a million. I know it's like ridiculously low. I think I saw over like the weekend I think they were like 170 or something. Were they not?
Over the weekend? 170 was June 26th. So last week.
So we're going off just today?
Just today, yeah.
I don't know, like 30 cases.
What?
No,
226, dude. There's a million people still there.
I don't know. The numbers I was reading. I could have.
Oh wait, no, is that all of Canada? No,
because I thought I read or saw on Twitter that Edmonton had like 170 cases over the
all
weekend.
of Canada only had 262 cases.
Yeah, like I think 30 is a reasonable guess. Maybe 50 cases. Because I'm trying to do with the math. Like, I think I read 170 over the weekend, so over a 3-day stretch, 50.
Since this has started, it says Edmonton's only had 1,128 cases.
Yeah. There's no way there's 200 in just today, Tate.
Yeah. No, you're right. I don't know where I can find today's numbers.
I'm not sure. Like, that's crazy because, like, every so often you read, like, somewhere in the States and it's like, oh, they had 1,000 cases today. And it seems like it. Does that not make you feel better, like, when we go out and do stuff, like, knowing the numbers are so low?
So the entire province recorded 29 cases on Friday.
Yeah.
52 on Saturday and 49 on Sunday.
Oh, so it wasn't even 170.
No. So it's pretty low considering.
Yeah.
Like
After,
Windsor had like 50 a couple weeks ago when they were testing the immigrant workers. So, and there's only how many people live in Kingsville, Leamington? 50,000. So not great. Not great.
I was just going to say, does it not make you feel better? Like when I'm not going to lie, when we were walking downtown last night to go get food, when we were walking by so many people, I got a little paranoid. I'm not going to lie.
Well, that's totally understandable. But we wear masks when we were inside, and
when we were inside, when there was no people,
there wasn't many people outside. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine.
It's fine,
right? We golfed yesterday, Cody. We were gonna do a video of it, and
thank God we didn't.
We saw Cody's first swing and thought, you know what? It's probably not best to do a video of this. So we spared him. That's about it for this week. We've been kicking out some hour 30s, hour 40s the last couple of weeks. So consider yourself spoiled.
Rendering time is ridiculous.
Yeah, rendering times. It hasn't been great for me. So that's it for this week. We will be back next week. And we're going to be talking about NHL training camps, and we're going to be talking about matchups, Cody.
Matchups? Arguably the thing I like talking about the most.
So that would be weird. Maybe we'll start with the West, get some matchups going. Maybe we'll get an interview of I don't know. It'll be weird interviewing a West. At least like when we interview, I guess we've done Nashville before with Justin.
Yeah.
That was OHL related.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we do LA Kings. No, they're not in it. We'll try to find a team with some type of OHL relation then.
Arizona, Liam Kirk.
Yeah, Liam Kirk still not signed. Like, yeah, we'll work on something. Well, Arizona also has Halsey.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, we'll talk to someone from Arizona then. and talk a little bit about their matchup with who is it again? I haven't looked in so long.
I gotta be honest, like,
What are the matchups, dude? NHL play-in round.
I don't really pay that much, or I haven't really paid that much attention to the Western Conference at all.
I know you
I'm
have
focused in on the East. I'm like, okay, if the Leafs don't lose to Columbus, who are we playing?
All right, Arizona is playing Nashville.
We talked about this. Didn't we talk about that last podcast? Or did we talk about that off podcast? No, you know what it was? I should know this because I was editing an article about the matchups and their predictions.
Well, so yeah, now we know Arizona, Nashville, Vancouver, Minnesota. Like, I forgot Minnesota was even a team. And Edmonton, Chicago, Calgary, Winnipeg. If Steve Dangle made it to the end of this podcast, I'm sorry, this was the one you listened to. But anyways, that's it from us. Have a good evening, night, morning, whatever time it is. Goodbye.